left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." He answered, "It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." And she said, "Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed from that moment. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and understanding of these words. Once upon a time, there was a disciples minister, and there was a woman who came to him and asked him if he would do a funeral for her dog. And the minister, who was a very proper minister, was kind of put off by that request. And he said, in a disgusted tone of voice, that he suggested that there was no way he would do such a thing and that she might want to try one of the other churches in the area. So she agreed to do that. She started to walk away, but then she decided to ask for some advice. So she walked up to the minister and said, "Do you think $500 is an appropriate honorarium for a funeral of this kind? And do I make the check out to the church or to the minister?" And Mr. Proper Minister said, "Well, why didn't you tell me your dog was a disciple?" First time I read this, it wasn't a disciple. I made it into a disciple. I don't know how you feel about dogs. I have a dog. How many of you have dogs or have had them? Yeah, dogs are great, aren't they? I have a wonderful dog. She's the sweetest dog on the face of the planet. And of course, you'll want to see pictures before I leave. No, I'm just teasing. But she weighs about 54 pounds. And she's kind of I call her cinnamon colored. And she's a very interesting looking dog. She's about yay high and about yay long. And she has this big curly tail. And everybody that sees her think, "Oh, what a beautiful dog. What breed is she?" And I go, "She's made out of spare parts. What can I say?" So anyway, but she weighs 54 pounds and she gets up on my lap. Now, I'm really not built for 54 pounds on my lap, but I've never trained her not to. So she gets up on my lap and I just cuddle her like a little teacup poodle, and we have a wonderful time together. And I tell her all the time what a very good girl she is. The Matthew text I read happens shortly after the story of the rough night on the Sea of Galilee, which, by the way, is really not a sea. It's really more of a big lake, and I've been on it, and it's pretty cool. But it's big enough to toss a boat, and is big enough to be a problem in a storm. So it's right after that. They've had that hectic night. They've gotten off the boat. They're walking in, and this is what Jesus says, what he says. "And did you know that it was a racist and ethnic slur to refer to people as dogs in his day?" So was Jesus being racist? Maybe, but that can't possibly be, right? That makes me uncomfortable. We don't want to follow a complicated Jesus who's dismissive and racist. Surely he had a heavenly reason for saying what he said. Or could it simply be that he was tired after walking on water across a storm-tossed lake and being both fully human and fully divine, experienced being a little more fully human at that moment? He and the disciples had just reached the shore when they were confronted by questions from some Pharisees. By this time in Jesus' ministry, he was the complete roadshow. I mean, drawing crowds and fans and critics wherever he went. And being tired was probably a way of life. I imagine they went to the foreign territory of Tyre and Sidon to seek some rest. So when a woman from the region, a non-Jewish woman, comes begging and pleading to him, what was his first reaction? He ignores her completely. His disciples whine and say, "Make her go away, she's bothering us." When he speaks, his words are dismissive and rude. It's not my job to deal with anyone who isn't a Jew, particularly little dogs like the inhabitants of Tyre and Sidon. But the woman stands up to him and points out his transgression. That's not exactly true, Jesus. Even we little dogs can benefit from your wisdom and mercy. It's a complete role reversal, which, if you're paying attention, Jesus is always talking about. He continually tells his followers that the kingdom of God isn't about the rich and the powerful. The kingdom of God is about taking care of the one lost sheep out of the 100. The kingdom of God isn't about mighty oak trees, but about mustard seeds. Jesus is always throwing curveballs at the people. Yet this time, Jesus starts out talking and acting like every other Jew. But he reversed himself quickly. He recognized her faith and he healed the woman's daughter. Now, I don't know about you, but this is a Jesus I can relate to. He could be tired. He could be cranky. He could even momentarily forget who had sent him and the message he was sent to share. In short, this is the human side of Jesus, the side that understands what we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. But he's also the guy who knew how to reverse course. He knew how to admit he was wrong and he knew how to change his mind. And I wonder if you and I are quite as adept at that. I know many days I am not. Right before this episode with the woman, before they crossed the Sea of Galilee, Jesus had been talking to the Pharisees. They were chiding him for not doing the full amount of ritual hand washing. He came back at them with verses 10 and 11 and 16 and 20 in Matthew chapter 15, and this is how they go. Jesus called the crowd near and he said to them, "Listen and understand, it's not what goes into the mouth that contaminates a person in God's sight. It's what comes out of the mouth that contaminates the person." Jesus said, "Don't you understand yet? Don't you know that everything that goes into the mouth enters the stomach and goes out into the sewer? But what goes out of the mouth comes from the heart. And that's what contaminates a person in God's sight. Out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adultery, sexual sins, thefts, false testimonies, and insults. These contaminate a person in God's sight." So he had just given this speech to these Pharisees. And what happens when he gets to Tyre and Sidon? Jesus turns around and targets what he forgets all about it, and he lets a racial ethnic slur come out of his mouth. Now we know this wasn't a regular habit of Jesus, yet even though it paints Jesus in an unfavorable light, the story is in two Gospels. It's both in Mark and Matthew. And any time a story is repeated, it's usually thought of as being very, very important, and we should pay attention to it. Does Jesus' behavior here excuse our lapses into name calling and gossiping and even slandering each other? No, it doesn't. You'll note that he immediately changed his mind and called her a woman of great faith, a high compliment. He immediately recognized what he had said and how sincerely she believed. He rewards her faith in the same way he rewards others who come to him and believe in God's love and mercy, which exists even for the most broken among us. Jesus was trying to help the Jewish people understand that God desired mercy more than sacrifice. I believe he kept his focus on the Jewish people so that they would go out and reach out to the little dogs of the world. Judaism was never supposed to be insular, pointed inside towards one another. But at that point, they were long since, they had quit worrying about being a light on a hill to the Gentiles. Instead, they dismissed and demeaned them. They were chosen by God to be God's public relations people, and they weren't doing a very good job of it. But just as with the Samaritan woman and many other non-Jews, Jesus realized that great faith was to be rewarded no matter what vessel that faith came in. Today we see too many people claiming to be purebred Christians while declaring that the rest of the peoples of the world are mutts. Sometimes we are even more narrow than that. We declare our fellow Christians to be mutts while we are of some special breed. In nature, any breed of dog is a result of the domestication of wolves. So they all started in the same place. Humans and wolves developed bonds, and as time moved on, dogs' breeds developed as humans decided which traits in these wolves that were the most desirable to them. And they would breed for those desirable traits. But as we bred for what we determined that was valuable, we've also created dogs that have inherent weaknesses. For instance, dogs with shortened snouts have been bred to the point where they suffer from a lot of breathing issues. Yet, if left alone, if we didn't do any more breeding of dogs, eventually they would return to a hodgepodge of genetics, and eventually those negative traits would no longer exist, because in the natural survival of the strongest, that's the way it works. Mutts are often healthier than purebred dogs because of this. This is the way God works. In other words, God makes mutts. Mutts are all different, but they're all fully dogs. I contend that we are all mutts, and none of us is even remotely perfect. Even the human Jesus got tired and lost his cool from time to time, but unlike many of us, he quickly recognized when it was time to take a change in direction. We're not always so agile or so able to do so when we make mistakes. Yet, if we are following Jesus, it is our responsibility to recognize our fault and change our ways as quickly as we can. Because we're all mutts, and every mutt is a member of the family of God. And every family member deserves the same love and kindness from us that we want from God. It's a far too human habit to look in the mirror and declare, I've got a fine pedigree. It's a far too human trait to place people in the other category, and having done so, to dismiss them and disdain them. It might be their religion that doesn't measure up, or their ethics, or the clothes they wear, or the music they listen to, or the color of their skin, or their sexual preference, or their gender, or whatever we decide isn't enough pedigree to be considered equal in the sight of God. So you get the point. We've all done it. Looked at someone and decided that they just weren't up to our standards. Judging others is somehow very much a human trait. Even Jesus did it. The difference is he recognized that he was wrong, and that the woman who was begging for healing for her daughter was filled with faith and goodwill, as we all should recognize when we are wrong. The next time we're tempted to judge another's looks or behavior, perhaps we can remember that none of us is any better than any other. We each have different life experiences, different families, and as a result, different opportunities. We each have different physical, mental, and emotional strengths and difficulties, yet we are all beloved by our Creator. We're all mutts, but that's okay. Our Creator invites us to crawl up and cuddle anyway, whether you're big or small. Amen.